What is something you did that you deeply regret doing? Putting time and efforts into relationships, friendships that I should have just let go the first chance I had. Alternatively, not putting enough time and effort into relationships, friendships that actually were worth it. The sunk cost fallacy gets many of us. You are not alone. Did a brutal clean out of Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter and email contacts at Christmas. So many people I just have no one to ever see again. I was 7 years of age, I had an argument with my mother the night before she died. Before I went to bed she asked me for a hug, I told her no and stormed off to bed. The next morning I woke up to find everyone in the house was gone, it was very surreal and confusing. My father came back in that morning crying and told me my mother had died of a brain hemorrhage. Never go to bed on an argument. My God, that must have been so traumatizing for you. I'm so sorry you went through that. I hope you have managed to find some peace. What I've learned from a lot of parents on this thread is that they know their kids love them really, and that kids are still learning to process emotions and empathy, and that they lash out, but that doesn't change anything. I am sure your mom knew you loved her and wouldn't want you to live your life regretting that night. Thank you. Most of my life I buried it as much as I could. I was forced to deal with it when I started dating women in my early 20s. I have found peace and moved on all right. Ironically enough, in my work, emergency services, I've had to tell people their family member has passed on. I once told a woman that her son had died of a drug overdose. She told me after that she was glad the way I broke the news and that my mother should be proud. I'm 31 and sometimes people say things that ring a chord with me. But life is all relative, everyone has something. Probably rejecting my grandpa when he wanted to play chess, he then fell from a roof like a week later and I never had the chance to play chess with him again, still bothers me that I kinda never had this moment with him. I have this fear now, well my parents are still alive. And my psychologist says the most sensible thing. We can't spend every moment with the people that love us. We just can't. And they don't expect us to. It wouldn't be healthy. And so we will all have some moments where we have said no. And that's okay. Or else we'd be resentful. Thank you for this message. I can't afford a psychologist, but those messages make me really want to go and get things out of my system. Good advice. My first semester of college, I would call my grandpa every Tuesday morning because I had to get up early for class, so I'd get up extra early to talk to him beforehand. One week I forgot to call him, I think I overslept and he unexpectedly passed in the next couple days. Still messes with my head tbh. Think of every Tuesday morning where you did talk to him. Think of the Monday nights he spent looking forward to your call. That probably meant more to him than you ever know. I called my buddy one night because I knew he was having a tough time. I told him I'm coming over, he kept saying no, I'm good, he was less than a mile away. I said okay and then his mom called me in the morning saying he was dead and what did he say to me in the phone call? I wish I went over. Remember that it's not your fault. And really cement it in your heart. You did what you thought was best. I'm sure he would never hold it against you, even now. You respected his wishes. Not on you. This kid was a valedictorian for school and gave a speech. He pointed out this one random kid in the crowd and started to mention that. One Friday, he stacked all of his textbooks in his backpack and was rushing home. When the boy he pointed at invited him over randomly. Apparently they ended up getting really close. And stayed friends. He admitted that Friday he packed all his textbooks because he was gonna kill himself that night. And he didn't want his mom to come pick his stuff up while mourning. This happened to a coworker yesterday. He just broke up with his long-term, cohabituating GF who had been cheating on him all the years they have been together and he was telling us how the GF kept calling and trying to contact him on social media. My coworker told her he wants to go no contact because it was just too painful and too much drama to talk to her. Yesterday, one of us saw a social media post that the GF died, committed suicide, and we were WTF. He was inundated with calls and we went on the GF social media to confirm we were all social media friends with her and all these posts started appearing on her FB page of people saying they miss her and everything. It was close to end of business day so we left. It was totally not his fault. He is an exceptionally kind guy, but you can tell he feels enormous shock and guilt. She repeatedly cheated on him and he broke up with her. You're damn right it's not his fault. She sounds like a psycho that would go so far as to take her own life to fuck with someone who dumped her. When I was 7 or 8 years old, I snapped at my dad for getting me the wrong video game and I can still see the disappointment in his face. Haunts me to this day. I remember my grandma taking me to the mall as a kid and I was getting super upset I couldn't get this $50 Paxson hoodie. $50 hoodies are common now, but it was very expensive then. I freaked out, even said I pay her back. We ended up going back for it. What haunts me most is I didn't even wear it. I really don't know why I acted that way and still feel terrible. Then we talk about $50 hoodies though, like why am I a whole adult now and I still can't afford mall clothes. Then we talk about how $50 hoodies are near the winds made of cheap materials, so if you wash them twice, they'll look 8 years old WTF. I think every kid has one of those moments where they get told no and it just fucking drives them crazy. Mine was my mom saying no to me getting top 4. I didn't understand because she let me play other M-rated games. I just had a kinda fit about it and begged for weeks and she wouldn't give in. Eventually I gave up and like a year later I asked again and got it. Honestly though, I kinda get why Kid Me was so angry about it. There was nothing more offensive in top 4 than, say, Call of Duty 3 or 4. Her telling me no just wasn't logically consistent with that one. The media just got to her with top 4. But still, I acted like a bit of a fucking baby. When I was 14 I got in a big argument with my dad about not having enough new clothes to wear to school. At a certain point he yelled, "If you want all this money to spend, go get a job." I'm pretty sure he meant it entirely rhetorically, but I took it seriously. Now at 14, I had no idea about how to actually get a job, so I walked to a strip of nearby restaurants and knocked on the back door and just asked if I can have a job. Naturally, most of them just laughed me away. But this one Chinese restaurant manager looked at me for a second and said, "Show up on Sunday at 8 a.m. Not gonna lie, I was kinda surprised. But I showed up. It was a dim sum brunch lunch thing and I pushed around a cart bussing tables. End of the day, they handed me something like $75 cash. And on Chinese New Year they gave me a little red envelope with a bonus $100 inside. Needless to say that is a very nice haul for a 14-year-old in 1990. My parents were the type to let me disappear in the morning and show up periodically or call to tell them where I was, so they didn't really notice me missing for those hours. I went to my dim sum shift every Sunday for a few weeks and eventually racked up enough money to buy this winter coat I wanted. NBA triple fat goose jacket on a skinny 14-year-old kid with even skinnier legs, looks like a goddamn lollipop. Came home from the mall with the jacket and my dad asked where the hell I got that. That's when I told them what I'd been doing every Sunday for the past 5 weeks. I'll never forget the look on my dad's face turning from a slightly angry surprise to one of approval and pride. So yeah, that's the story of how I got my first job, lol. Not opening a retirement account when I was 18 like I was told to. And not investing my money I made bartending in my 20s. When you're that young you don't think about things like that, unfortunately. Alternatively, opening an investment account after working a few years in my 20s and putting everything I had into it in a couple mutual funds in early 2008. Then panicking and bailing out in 2009 when 60% down, afraid the whole market was collapsing to zero. Then, being afraid to restart investing, that the same might happen again and so missed a decade plus of opportunity until I finally overcame that fear and put all my new savings into a new investment account in late 2021. And, through this last year it is all again down 60%, just normal stocks, no options or crazy stuff. Basically, like 17 years of work equivalent has disappeared due to the world's shittiest timing to start investing, and I'm no further along now than I was maybe 2 years into working. I try not to dwell on it. It's time in the market, not timing the market that counts. Getting married to my first girlfriend at 19. I rushed the relationship because it felt good to not be alone and I thought that I could help her with her depression and anxiety, was hoping to have kid with her as well. However, as time went on she just got worse and worse and kept using her depression as a crutch to justify every shitty thing she did. When I started experiencing depression I stopped trying to keep things together and we got divorced a few years ago. I still haven't recovered mentally from it and between that and the pandemic I feel like a shell of the man I used to be. Dude. What you're saying feels like the relationship I just ended. I tried so hard to help, but everything made it worse. I deeply regret letting my creative writing and piano playing skills go to shit. Ever since I entered the corporate world 19 years ago, it has consumed me and I no longer feel passionate about those things. I stopped practicing everything. When I try to make myself do them, it feels like just that, like I am forcing myself and it is no longer fun. I feel like I've become a shell of my former self in so many ways. That fucking hit me. I really enjoyed drawing, but I took a break. I've been trying to pick it up again, but it feels like I'm forcing myself even though I really want to get better at it. I started a break from drawing 8 years ago. Should be over any moment now. This hits me as a visual studies major who literally had the passion and motivation sapped out of me collectively over years of having no free time due to filling my time with school work and work. Nowadays I get plenty of ideas, but just can't get the energy to act on any of them. Every time I think about trying it becomes a chore in my head thinking about the time it'll take to set up and then put away and clean. So many people could do amazing things, but don't because full-time corporate work just drains the life right out of you. It's not too late though, I hope you can figure out a way to enjoy that stuff again. This sounds pretty textbook depression, friend. I suggest looking into therapy. Maybe talk to your doctor about meds too. Life is too short to be a zombie. I wish I would have tried a bit harder in school and have graduated with a GPA higher than 2.8. I struggled so much with math. Me too, I graduated HS with a 2.9, math was a killer for me, but to be fair, I was awful at finishing homework for every class in general. Just didn't want to do it. I did start college years later though in my 30s and attempted math again and killed that shit. Not saying you should do the same, but know that just because you struggled back then wouldn't mean you'd struggle with it today. Use my credit card too much to buy things I didn't need. Now I'm dealing with a maxed out credit card that's killing me every month. This is why I have been resisting getting a credit card for 15 years. Very poor impulse control. I've had a credit card for years, but the only thing I ever use it for is if I need groceries a couple days out from being paid, then once paid I immediately put it back. Can be really handy if people have control. Unfortunately most people really don't have that control. There is reason why there are entire profit industries that grew up solely because they take advantage of it. Wanting to become adult ASAP. I relate to that. Realize that a lot of adults are pretty fucked up. Growing up is just realizing there are no grown-ups. So true grown-ups is really a scam. You don't grow up just because you grow up. There is also the realization that being grown up involves a lot tedious tasks and responsibilities, and there is often not enough time left to spend on the things you enjoy. Not getting a second opinion sooner on my back injury. Injured my back at work in 2014, was taken to a workover doctor, where I now know I was misdiagnosed and then gaslighted by the workplace OH&S officer. Had I known that I could seek a second opinion from another doctor while on workover, it would have been found that I had a permanent disc protrusion that was impacting a major nerve. I waited 7 years to seek a different opinion, all because I believed the workover doctor and a physio couldn't be wrong as they were professionals and that I had just a simple back strain. Meanwhile I'm walking around in chronic pain with a disc protrusion that could have ruptured at any given moment. I'm now permanently disabled thanks to my own stupidity. And I can't take legal action against the company now as there is only a 3-year grace period to do so. Mine is similar. I slipped on ice, pulling a full pallet out the freezer while doing knife fill in 2003. Off on workers' comp for what I thought was a torn muscle in my lower back. Pushed back to work just before my TPD insurance cover began, so no money during that time, but way before I should have gone back. Could only handle the pain another 6 months and ended up leaving. After a year, it still wasn't getting better, so my GP wanted me to get an MRI. Ex-husband wouldn't pay allow me to get it done, so it got for years. Finally had the MRI done in 2019, far past the statute of limitations period. I have a bulging disc which is putting pressure on the nerve that goes into my hip and a spur on one of my lower vertebrae. Add to that knee damage that was done in 2004, again not allowed to get it fixed at the torn cartilage stage, and I'm a write-off for most workplaces. Now I have to work for myself, been knocked back for hundreds of jobs that I should have been suitable for. Our doctors are corrupt to hell and literally immune to lawsuits. They say whatever their employer says but most people have so much faith in them. Getting married. I spent years paying off her substantial debt, I then dumped another $50,000 in our forever house, only to live in it for a year. Now she's debt-free and I lost half of everything I paid for. Never again. This angers me so much. Being too loyal and putting up with poor treatment from so-called friends to the detriment of my mental health, not anymore bitches. Cut them all out when I realized they were unable to respond to me in a healthy way and still expected me to be on default fronting mode. Absolutely. Here's to cutting the shitty people out of our lives when they'd rather have a lapdog than a friend. Fuck toxic friends. Being too kind to people that do me wrong all the time. This one'll fuck you up. Don't ever feel like it's your fault, a lot of people are just nasty. And remember that you don't owe anyone anything. Be kind if it makes you happy. If you feel like they don't deserve it, don't give it to them. Some people don't deserve your kindness. This is a hard lesson I'm still learning myself. In my opinion, it's even worse when it's family members that do this. You can be kind to them, but you need to be kinder to yourself and cut them off completely. Getting a DUI when I was 21. My best friend committed suicide in my apartment and I didn't know how to cope with the grief, so I turned to alcohol, not an excuse for my reckless behavior at all, just an explanation. It's been 8 years and I can't stop thinking about how dumb that was.